Hello everyone and welcome back to NRL SuperCoach live streams. Fingers crossed you all can hear me. Please let me know in the chat if you can or you can't. It's been a long time since I have done one of these live streams, isn't it? So keen to get back into it, but only if you guys can hear me and everything looks okay. So yeah, great to see everyone back in the chat. Lots of familiar faces and names, which is awesome to see. Logan, you wanted to see the team. I'm putting it out there straight away from the beginning, but we'll definitely chat more than about just the team. We'll also look into the new rules that have been announced by the Daily Telegraph for the 2023 season. Lots of stuff to get into. Loud and clear. That's good. My longest year boy ever. Yeah, boy, we're back. Appreciate everyone being in the chat already. Jake, Mitchell, one of our members. What a time to be alive. I know. SuperCoach is back. We can start tinkering non-stop. Logan says show your team. There's part of it. We'll get to the bottom, but it's not really that different from anyone else's. David says selling Burton and some other Donny. Got 1.2 million in the bank. We're already into the questions about players. Love to see it. Stuart, is Ray likely to get a starting spot? Lots of questions about players, which is great to see. And Stuart, obviously, long-time supporter of the channel as well. So definitely appreciate you being here. G'day to Jerry, #1 Dillbag supporter. 100%. And he's not even in my team. How sad is that? Look, I'm sure there will be a preseason draft where Dillbags makes it, because you all know. I don't need to say anything more about Dillbags, surely. You guys know I love the guy. Jerry, so welcome to you. Philip, Braden, Logan, David already said shout out. Samuel, Michael, Jaden. Lots of people in the chat. Awesome to see. But yeah, let's get straight into it. So, I don't even know where to begin, to be honest. I'm kind of all over the place. It's been so long since I've done a live stream. But look, I think probably the first thing maybe that is worth chatting about, I guess, is the rules. So it was announced yesterday that there's been a couple of tweaks for the 2023 season. Main one is obviously, biggest thing with this year is that we've got the Dolphins. So that means a bye every week for one team per round. And we've also got 3 major bye rounds, which is rounds 13, 16, and 19 from memory. So the difference with this season is what they're doing is you get a best 13 rule in your major bye rounds. So I will quickly go to the rules on my screen here, and let me know if you guys can't see this in the sense of like if it's too small. Back to all help. What's new in season 2023? Gameplay and rule updates. So this is where we want to be. So I guess a couple of changes. So we've got 46 trades this season. So there's 2 extra rounds this year. I think there's 27. So there's really 26 rounds, I think, from memory where we can actually use trades, because, you know, the trades that we used before round 1 don't count. They're unlimited. 46 trades is obviously quite a bit. And so, you know, they've stepped it up probably just to help players, I think, navigate the buys. I was kind of not speaking directly to Rob Sutherland from the Daily Telegraph, but I was in a couple of Twitter conversations. And yeah, the intention was definitely, in terms of that best 13 rule in the major buy rounds, to make it more accessible for the everyday player. And, you know, obviously that's a little bit different to what kind of us hardcore players normally would do. We'd normally plan a lot, we strategize, try to get ourselves ahead. Obviously, the SuperCoach guys want to make sure that they get a bigger player base as much as possible. So, look, it makes sense in their opinion. To be honest, I'm kind of just like whatever about it. Like, I know a lot of people are not really happy with it and are kind of against it. My approach is just deal with the cards that were dealt. It's there. So let's see how we can maybe make some use out of it. So just to be clear on the best 13 rule, just so that anyone isn't aware. So in the major buy rounds, so that's rounds 13, 16, and 19, you'll be able to make up to 3 trades in the major buy rounds. So that's 1 on top of the normal 2 that you can get every round. You can't... Excuse me, you can also use a trade boost to get yourself up to 4 trades, I believe, in those major buy rounds. But what is the difference with this best 13 rule is, so just like how you would in a normal week, you choose your best 17, so you choose your 13 starting players and you choose your 4 reserves. But what the best 13 rule does is it just looks at, out of your 17 that you've selected, it will look at the top scoring 13 players, and that will get counted for your major buy round. So you still need to select 17. It won't just automatically look at your entire 25-man squad. So I still feel there is going to be an element of buy planning, because, to be honest, like most people in the major buy weeks that we've had the last few seasons, they were kind of hovering around the 12 to 15 range. So really trying to get 13 players out in every bye week, I still feel like is going to be somewhat of a challenge. You've obviously got those extra trades to be able to do that, but I still think getting to 13 is going to be somewhat tricky to do. So I think my personal opinion is people are somewhat overplaying, I guess, how bad of a change this is. Like, to me, I think there's still going to be some elements of strategy and planning that you'll need to do. And I guess the initial strategy that, you can kind of think of with this best 13 rule is that if you're able to plan well, you can pick maybe 17, 18 guys, but within those 17, you can pick some higher upside, more punty pod picks, because then at that point, you can have, let's say in the major bye week, you choose, I don't know, let's say you've gone Micah Sevo, let's say hypothetically. Micah Sevo, is a higher risk guy, but, low owned, and you could just, in normal circumstances, you maybe wouldn't consider him, but for the purposes of, managing those bye weeks, you might think, look, Sevo's got a really good matchup, I'm going to bring him in and hope that he gets 3 or 4 tries and gets 100, and that's how you get your advantage in your best 13. So I think it's still important to be picking the right players. So I think there is still going to be an element of strategy and planning as part of this major buy round, but I can see why some people are not too happy about it. It does make the game a little bit easier, but look, for me, it's fine. My channel is predicated on having a larger fan base and follower base. So more people playing the game is probably going to be better for me. So I really can't complain too much about it. And look, I think when we come to the major bye weeks, I think people will find it's probably not going to be as easy as how it's being made out to seem. But that's my piece on those updated rules. I'd be keen to see what you guys also think about the best 13 week. Samuel says, I came here for the poems, but I'll take the SuperCoach chat. Don't worry, I will try to come up with a poem at some point during this live stream. I did already write one on Twitter for one of the followers, so I'm already back writing the poems. I think it went along because we're on the topic of poems, I'll find the poem that I wrote on Twitter and I will quickly read it out for you guys, because hopefully you'll think it's a banger. Oh my god, there's been lots of notifications on Twitter today, I'll put it that way. There's been so many really nice people kind of tagging all the the content creators and stuff. But okay, here it is. So you wanted a poem, Samuel. Why make you wait any longer? My 2023 SuperCoach season will be even stronger. Dylan Brown to surge me to the top, but I'm more likely to just have a massive flop. There you go. Poem number 1 of 2023. How about that? So yeah, let me know in the chat if you guys enjoyed that poem. If you didn't, that's fine as well. So that's really the biggest thing I think to talk about from a rule change perspective. We'll still obviously there's those extra trades, but aside from that, there's really nothing too different. So I think the game has been kind of set up this season with not too many changes. Those are probably the main updated ones. But yeah, be keen to see what you guys think in the chat. So Brenton asked, do you think it's a field of 13 or positions are irrelevant, just top score down? I think it's just top score down. So I think, for example, if you didn't have, let's say you had Cleary and Hines, who are going to be, I think both missed the round 13 week. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to get an AE. I feel like you're just going to get, if you've got 13 other players within that 17 that you select, I think it will just take the top 13 out of those 17. So I think it's going to be a top score down kind of mechanism. So just on this, I really quickly wanted to actually bring up my planner spreadsheet that I've been working on over the off season, and thank you as well to everyone who has chipped in to get this spreadsheet. I really do appreciate it. I understand that asking for people's cash is always a little bit sensitive, but so that's why I didn't want to make it too much. Just the $3 I think was all I was charging, and people have been really generous. But I did want to bring it up because I think it's probably a good chance to use it when talking about these major bye weeks. So if I quickly scroll over to round 13, so you can see quite a few of the big teams actually have the bye. So Panthers is one, Sharks is the other. So that's that perfect example of having no Nico Hines or Nathan Cleary in the bye week. So you're already thinking in a normal situation or pre-best 13 situation, you're probably thinking, oh, that's a bit of a tricky situation. I might not have any halfbacks. But with your best 13 rule, it might not matter. You might afford to be able to carry those gun halfbacks, knowing that as long as you've got another 13 guys out in your 17, you'll get points from them and not have to cop their AE. So I think in that sense, it will help things. But let's say, for example, if you look at this, Manly play Newcastle in round 13. So let's say, for example, Ruben Garrick, really expensive. We all know he's a pretty quality gun. But let's say he's low owned up at that point in time, and you're able to manage trades to get in Garrick to cover you for this bye week. He may not be a player who's highly owned at that point, but we know he's got a massive ceiling. So already you've got one higher upside guy who in your best 13 would be better than other people's. So that's maybe one way of thinking about the strategy. Michael says, what happens if your captain is in the bottom 4 scorers? Purely a guess, but I would imagine that it wouldn't count. And if your vice captain isn't sitting in your best 13, it will just go into your vice captain score. The interesting thing, I guess, is if your captain and your vice captain are actually in your bottom 4. In that case, I have actually no idea what's going to happen. That's probably something that's worth raising with the Daily Telegraph guys. I guess the event of that happening is quite low, but interesting just to figure out or see what's going to happen in that situation. So yeah, still a lot of questions I think about this rule that, but I'm sure come round 1 we'll have all the clarity and information that we need. Samuel says, I'm wet. Thank you for the pork. The pork or the poem, whatever it is, you are welcome, Samuel. So still lower scores than not planning anyway, not a huge deal. Yeah, Brenton, I still think there's going to be an element of planning. James says, if it's top down, does that mean that you won't be able to loop in the major bye weeks? For example, if you've got 13 plus players play. Yeah, I guess looping also becomes a bit of a change there as well, isn't it? So again, something that we probably need to figure out. I'd really have to kind of start playing with these scenarios and seeing what happens in that case. But yeah, I think the vice captain loophole would also be affected. Boomlicious says, take a drink, man. All right, fair enough. I probably do need some water. Gazraki's in the chat. My boy, man, I've missed you, mate. I've missed you too as well. It's actually really cool to see a lot of you guys back. And so, yeah, really happy to, obviously be chatting SuperCoach again. Obviously, we're still about a month and a bit away from the start of the season, but lots of videos planned. I've already released the hooker video. I've recorded the front row forward video, which I'm just mid-editing. So I'm hoping to have that one out, say, Thursday night for you guys. And then hopefully a second row forward video, maybe on the weekend, otherwise early next week. But we've got all the position profiles to go through. We've got some strategy videos that I've got kind of an idea to do. Potentially might bring some guests on for live streams as well for the beginning of the year. So there's lots of stuff planned, rating you guys teams, so much stuff that we can get through in the preseason. So really, actually, when you think about it, just over a month, there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to have to do. So it's going to be a busy February, but making content is good fun. Matthew says, I'm not live, but think you're sleeping a bit on Welch. So Matthew, I guess I'll mention it in the front row forward video as well. Well, I've already said it in the front row forward video, but I do think Welch is actually a decent option because, just a shout out again to NRL Physio's Patreon, which I'm a patron of. He does amazing breakdowns of injury profiles, etc. for players. So it's really good at looking, especially forwards and how they return from injuries. And so he was really positive on Welch in the sense that he deferred him coming back because apparently he was a chance of coming back at the end of 2022 in the final series, but he decided to delay it just to make sure he was fully recovered. And so he doesn't have as many concerns about Welch's fitness and kind of performance coming back from his Achilles, given that he's had quite a bit of time off. And so Welch is actually probably someone who may offer some value. So I don't actually mind Welch. He's not in my current setup, but definitely someone I'm looking at in that cheaper front row forward category. Gazaraki's a member. Awesome. Welcome. Were you a member before? I'm not 100% sure, but Gazaraki, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. Rocco says, show us that bottom half of the team. All right, don't worry. We'll get on the team. Don't worry. We'll get on the team. I'm not sure if there's anything else really on the rules to touch on. I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions coming in about it, but yeah, let's get into the team. So it's really not too different to what I had in my initial preseason draft team. So I'll quickly show you guys the backs because I think the screen was covering it for a lot of the time. So really what's changed, I think, from the preseason video is I don't have Brian To'o because essentially what I think I can't even remember what I showed in my preseason draft, if I owned Latrell or not. But basically I had put more money, I think, into my, I don't know where I'd put the extra money, but essentially I've taken it out of To'o and I think I've put it into Latrell. So obviously we've gone really heavy in the fullbacks. Do think it's the best position to target. And I think with the doubts about Ponga, he's had a bit of an injury issue in the preseason. He should be okay for round 1. I believe it was a calf strain. And obviously with Turbo picking up another kind of hamstring setback, that probably means that, he potentially could be fit for round 1, but Manly do have the bye in round 2. So there's a question of if he's not fit for round 1, do Manly just kind of sit him for a fortnight, get him back for round 3? if Turbo is available for round 1, I'll be hard pressed not to start with him just because his price is ridiculous. I think he's sub 600k, and so obviously then that frees up a lot of cash to move elsewhere in the team. But yeah, so at the moment, Tedesco and Latrell are the fullbacks I'm running with. Tedesco I don't really see myself not going with. It really, I think, is dependent on the other position that's likely to change. So as a result of taking money out of centres, I've had to go a little bit cheaper. So I don't love the fact that a lot of those centres are like kind of in that awkward 300k range. So that's definitely somewhere I'm not super settled on. Someone in the chat, Jaden, says Paul Alamotti, question mark. So yeah, Paul Alamotti definitely can be a serious consideration, I think, in centre wing. Just haven't got him in this current setup because what I wanted to do was just to create a team where I had a more expensive, cheap centre wing, so like Hayes Dunster, for example. And the idea is that if Alamotti is confirmed, I can very easily just move Dunster down to Alamotti without having to then, if, let's say, for example, I started with Alamotti and I spent that extra 30k somewhere else in the team. If Alamotti doesn't become an option and I need to go back up to Dunster, you start having to then take the money out of other positions. So at the moment, I've just got Dunster as a placeholder, but very good chance that Alamotti is in the starting 25 that I have, because word on the street and on the Twitter and the rumour mill is that Alamotti should have one of the centre spots. So at the moment with the Dogs, they've got Hayes Perham. It looks like he's going to be get first crack at the fullback spot, hence why he's currently in my team as well. And then, Adokar is going to be on one wing. Other wing is probably going to be a battle between Jacob Carraz and Ockenbaugh. I would think Carraz would probably win that battle. And then apparently with the centres, you've got Jake Averillo, Paul Alamotti, and you've got, I think it's Braden Burns. So that's 3 centres who may need to fit into 2 spots, but apparently Alamotti is very close to having one of the centre spots. So he'll definitely be a consideration, I think, just kind of dependent on, him getting named in TLT. Ponga too injury prone now. Yeah, that's kind of the issue with Ponga, isn't it? The Knights have got a fantastic draw. We'll quickly just hover back over to the planner. So again, I may as well make use of the feature and and sort the draw for the first 6 weeks. But Knights come out on top. Warriors, Tigers, Dolphins, Raiders at home, Manly, and the Warriors in the first 6 is awesome. Obviously, it gets a lot tougher at that point. So Ponga would be a real serious consideration. But just, with the injury risk, I think for now I'm happy to just kind of avoid him. Good chance he'll actually get 5/8 status. That's probably also one more thing that's worth touching on. So they've taken away a lot of the dual position players. They've taken away a lot of the dual positions from a lot of these players. But the idea of doing that is, for them, it's easier to add dual position than set in stone dual position from round 1, which they can't change. It just gives them some extra flexibility. So I think we'll see this season probably a lot more dual positions getting added in the weeks where it does come in, which I believe is round 6, 12, and 18. I think that's actually stated in the rules. I might quickly check that for you. What's new in season 2023? No, I don't think it would be in there, would it? Selecting a team? Maybe it's team editing. Anyway, I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in the rules, but I believe it's still round 6, 12, and 18 where they add the dual positions. Matthew says, I'm back to live viewing now. Awesome. Thoughts on Croker? Matthew says, Croker, is that Lachlan Croker from Manly? Or Jared Croker? I hate Croker, but 279k and Raiders draw, not too bad. I just don't know if he's going to get a starting spot, is he? Because you've got Sebastian Chris will probably take a spot, and then probably Tomoko will take the other one, or what's the other guy? Is it Harley Smith Shields may take another centre spot? I just don't see how Croker gets back in there. So I really don't. I mean, I'm open to seeing what happens on TLT, but my feeling is that he wouldn't make their starting 17. Will the rule change regarding both feet behind the red for offside? Should dummy half runs increase? And is there anyone to target outside of the obvious ones like Cook, etc.? That's actually a really good point, James. I think they mentioned this as well on one of the Bloke in a Bar podcasts where they had, so now essentially if your feet have to stay on the line until the ball gets played, otherwise it's considered being offside. And so James, someone like Brandon Smith is really probably going to benefit from that if it actually does become a bit more of a in-game ploy, because we saw in that season when he was averaging like over 60 and he just kept scoring tries. So many of them were just those little darts from dummy half close to the try line, a bit of a crash play. And so if you've got that rule, you've got kind of, defenders at the mark, not being able to react as quick because they have to keep their feet on the line, and you've got Cheese kind of just running over from dummy half, it's a good chance that he maybe gets a few more tries. And so I know Cheese is in everyone's team, but I think that probably is another helpful factor. But it's just really the price, and I think the fact that he's at a new team and starting probably is why everyone is so hot on Brandon Smith. In terms of other hookers outside of Cook, etc., I do feel like it's a somewhat weaker position. So you've got Reece Robson, Cook, Coruscant, and Grant as kind of the guns that I identified in my video. You've got a bunch of mid-range guys like maybe Jaden Brayley. If you want to take a punt with the good draw that the Knights have, maybe you can save some money there. But I guess I'm just not as super confident in a lot of those other non-gun options, which is why I feel like I'm just going to default to having literally probably two of Grant, Smith, Robson, and Tanner Boyd. At the moment, I don't really see myself venturing out of those four, but obviously things can definitely change to change our minds. Aman, no Ruben Cotter. Yeah, no Ruben Cotter. So obviously Tim Williams on the SE Playbook, I think it's the Beers and Breakevens podcast, did a great job in advocating for Ruben Cotter. Really up until that point, I hadn't considered him, but then he mentioned him, and I started looking at the numbers, and I was thinking, this again, I mentioned this in the front row forward video that's going to come out later this week. He's priced at an average of 59, but when he was fully fit, he was averaging more closer to 65 to 70. So there's definitely good value in Cotter. So I don't mind Cotter. Essentially what I summarized in my front row forward video was I kind of take back what I originally said in my preseason draft video, which is I want to try to kind of save money in front row forward. I think that's true to an extent, but I'm much more open, I think, to spending good money on a good front row forward. Only one gun front row forward, I think, but really it would only be, I think, one of Tarpany, Tohu Harris, or Ruben Cotter. I don't see myself spending over say 600,000 on any other front row forward except one of those three. After that, I think then I'll start looking straight at the kind of Safidis and the Collins, Christian Welch, for example. But I think there is definitely scope for a Cotter. Tohu Harris is definitely appealing to me because we just know how consistent he is. And Tarpany obviously had insane 2022, so I guess I just do take the chance that he's going to repeat the same thing again this year. Logan says, seen a few of the experienced guys, not too big on Hammer. I've got him in my squad. What are your thoughts on him? Before I do that, I want to say a big thank you to Tyler and to Michael, both for becoming members of the channel. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks again for jumping on board for the 2023 season. Appreciate it a lot. But Logan, just on your question. So I've got him at the moment. I think the reason why he's probably not in a lot of teams is there's just a bit of uncertainty about what his position is going to be, because we don't really know too much about the Dolphins in the back line. Like you've got the Hammer, but you've also got Tessie New there now. You've got Jermaine Asako. There's a couple of guys there who could compete for the fullback spot. So I think at the moment he's a placeholder, but if I see Hammer not playing at fullback, I probably won't start with him. So I think that's probably why a lot of people don't have him in their starting squad. There's just some uncertainty around his starting position. Matthew says, will news on Pappy return affect a team setup? Just curious. Look, Matthew, from everything that I've read, NRL Physio, all the reports coming out, he just doesn't look like he's going to be ready for round one. So in all honesty, I haven't really considered Pappy at all, because it just seems like he's not going to be ready for round one. He was only just starting to run like 5-6 months, I think, after he had the kneecap issue, which is really hard to see because we all love him for Supercoach, right? He probably is, I think, fully fit, hands down the best Supercoach player that we have. Maybe just because I think he's just that good. But injuries obviously setting him back. Even if he's available for round one and declared ready, I just don't think I'll take the risk on him because he's such a high price, and based on the reports that I'm seeing, I don't think I'll start with him. So haven't really considered Pappy up until this point. James is saying, I'm thinking Manu will take a lot more runs from dummy half / first receiver. That's a good point. Yeah, Joey Manu does like to take a lot of those dummy half runs and could really excel there. So I think that's, James, I think you're making a really good point. I think this is actually something I should write down in terms of, looking at new NRL rules, seeing how that might benefit some Supercoach players. You give me a great video idea. Thank you. Because I think there are a lot of these players, we can look at the numbers, which players take the most dummy half runs, which players average the most coming out of dummy half. I think there's a lot of actual solid numbers that you could put behind that. And Joey Manu loves a dummy half run, and obviously no one I've seen has Joey Manu in their team because he's super expensive, but God, he was an absolute beast 2022. So don't mind signing with him ideally, but he's probably going to be a bit too expensive, I think, for a lot of people. Thoughts on Franklin Pele and his signing to the Bulldogs? Yeah, I mean, he's not in my squad at the moment, just on the basis, again, similar to what I said with having Hayes Dunster over Alamotti. At the moment, I'm just picking the guy who's slightly higher, and if I can go down to Pele, then great. But yeah, it's just a question of, is he going to get the minutes? Just not too sure at the moment. So again, definitely a wait and watch in trials and, TLT. Tyler says, who's your must-have center wing? I think center wing is really open this season. I feel like, I'm seeing Crazy Praying Mantis's comment, I'm avoiding the cheapy center trap. I definitely try to avoid that if I can. That's why in my original video, I said I wanted to start with someone like To'o, one of those higher price guys. I have a feeling I'm not going to stick with the setup that I've got at the moment with the cheap centers because it is really volatile, and especially with some of these 300k guys, like, if they don't perform, they just don't rise enough in cash and you just really struggle to move them on. In terms of must-haves, it's really hard to have a must-have. I mean, Nico Klukstad has never really been too Supercoach relevant, but at 320k, if he's playing fullback, I do like him. So he's probably going to be someone I stick with. We generally do like fullbacks as well for Supercoach. They generally get the higher points with try assists, line break assists and stuff like that, more run meters. So Hayes Perham, not a must-have by any means, but obviously a very good option. Alamotti, I think if he gets the nod for round one, I think will be very, very highly owned. So I guess you can call him close to a must-have. Nico Klukstad, maybe. Isaac Thompson is not a must-have, but a very good option because he's probably going to start the first, I think, 2 rounds for the Rabbitohs on the right wing and very easily could just keep that spot. And so, if you're getting a starting winger for the Rabbitohs who are really good attack, at his price of 336k, you'll definitely take that. But it really is a hard position to nail down must-haves because all the guys that we want, Val Holmes, Garrick, Manu, etc., they're super, super expensive. So there's a very good reason to not start with them at the beginning of the year. So really hard to have a must-have for centre wing. Matthew says, more so thinking Munster playing fullback. Yeah, great point. I think that's the thing. Munster I haven't got in my team. And, I feel like you'd want to have one of Harry Grant or Munster, at least. Get one of those kind of storm guns. And yeah, Munster playing fullback, we saw how good he was at the back end of last year playing fullback. So I think if we get that clear confirmation, yeah, Munster could just be a great shout. You know what you're going to get. He's always going to deliver for you. Can you give some more thoughts on Gilbert? Yeah, so there was some footage actually, or some pictures posted today of Gilbert in training. I know the SC Whisperer is very keen on him because, he's probably going to play decent minutes. And the rest of the forwards at the Dolphins are a little bit older. Gilbert's a bit of a young guy, so he will obviously be able to play more minutes. Look, my feeling is he's fine as an option. I think he's priced more or less at what he's going to deliver. There might be an extra 4 or 5 points of value, which is fine. And he's got dual status, which is really handy. So look, I think he's going to be a solid option for either your front row forward or your second row forward. Good chance that I start with him from round one. Don't think he's like a clear must-have, but yeah, solid option, and I think there'll be a little bit of value in him. Logan says, I've got Val Holmes as my center gun because of the Cowboys draw. Yeah, Cowboys draw is insane. So quickly going back to the spreadsheet. So on my sorting of the first 6 weeks, Cowboys are second. Where they really stand out though is on a long-term view. If you go to the 8 rounds and you sort by best to worst, they come out on top for the first 8 weeks, and you look at that and you're just like, yeah, I'll have some of that. I'll have Val Holmes. I'll have Reece Robson. I'll have Scott Drinkwater because they don't play any, no Sharks, no Roosters, no Penrith, no Melbourne, no Rabbitohs. Their draw for the first 8 weeks is just ridiculous. So yeah, I did try a draft squeezing in Val Holmes. I just found it so hard because I had to essentially give up Harry Grant, which I'm not too keen on doing. But yeah, do like Val Holmes for sure because that draw is insane. It's insane how good that draw is. Remus Smith. Yeah, maybe Remus Smith. I think he's coming back from that, pectoral injury. He's never really been too Supercoach relevant. I find Storm centers don't tend to be that great for Supercoach, so haven't really considered him too much. I may consider him, but I don't know. I feel like he's one that I can avoid and not get burnt too hard by. Luke says less options for centre wing / second row forward duels this year. Jack Bird looks the best option, but a bit pricey. Yeah, that was definitely an intended thing by the guys at SuperCoach headquarters. They wanted to remove the duels so that they've got more flexibility to add them during the season. So that's essentially the reason why. But yes, there is a definite lack of centre wing, second row forward duels compared to prior seasons. With there being less ground to make up during the bye rounds now, based on the 13-man rule, does it tempt you to chase more volatile players for that upside? Yeah, 100% Stuart. Mentioned it at the beginning of the stream. I think that's going to be one way that a lot of players will try to get that advantage in the bye weeks, is really trying to chase those high upside guys. So if we quickly go back to the draw, so if you look at first round 13, you look at some of these matchups, not a lot stand out because you've got Parramatta versus the Cowboys, so it doesn't look appealing. But, you've got Manly versus Newcastle, so someone like Tom Trbojevic, Ruben Garrick, maybe loading up on Manly players could be how you get ahead in round 13. Maybe the Broncos against the Warriors, so maybe you look at like Katoni Staggs, God forbid Katoni Staggs. I don't know if I can go back there and go through the pain again. Or Cobbo, oh god, those Broncos centers wingers, they absolutely killed me last year. I've just remembered how bad they were for me last season, and I kept selling them at the wrong time. Oh my god. But look, maybe they could be an option. Couriers, for example. Dragons have got the Dolphins, maybe like Zach Lomax, I don't know. But I do think that's going to be a way that you can get an advantage. If you look at round 16, Storm have got the West Tigers. So I'm not sure how that sits with the origin period. Like, for example, if guys like Munster, Grant will be resting or not. But let's say they're playing. You target someone like Harry Grant, Munster, maybe an Olam, maybe a Xavier Coates, for example. Those are the type of punts I think you need to make. Sharks, for example, have got the Bulldogs. We think that the Bulldogs will improve, but maybe you can go for like a Sione Katoa, what's his name? Mulatalo, for example, Talakai. I think that's kind of how you have to get ahead and make an advantage in those bye weeks for sure. Benny G's in the chat. Wirrama Trade's gone back. Let's go, man. Mate, thank you so much for the donation. I absolutely love your team name. It's actually the best. Wirrama Trade's gone. You need to copyright that before someone else takes it, my friend. But no, welcome. Really glad to see you in the chat. Thank you so much. What about Charlie Staines? Yeah, Staines is also an option. I think there's a lot of centers in this kind of 300k bracket. I see someone else mentioning Tommy Talau. So kind of in the same bucket. Apparently Charlie Staines is having a crack at playing fullback. So yeah, the reason I haven't got them in yet is I just haven't really thought about putting them in at this point in time. But the way that I see it is having these kind of 300k guys should make it easy enough for me to kind of switch around once we get more news. So for me, those kind of unknowns, the Alamottis, the Staines, the Talaus, all those kind of 300, 200k guys we're just not sure about. At the moment, I've just kept them out of the squad, and then with the ability and the intention of being able to bring them back in. But no, definitely when it comes to the time when I'll do the center wing video, I'll definitely put a bit more research into some of those Tigers players for sure. With the possibility that Munster plays fullback until Pappy gets back, thoughts on running Munster and Burton at 5'8" position, moving Schuster to second row forward? Yeah, really, I don't think that's a bad strategy because 5'8" is a high upside position. So I quite like that, Like, let's say if I play around with this, for example, let's say I take out Harry Grant. It feels hard doing that, but let's say I take out Harry Grant. Let's say I just move Schuster to my second row forward. Then all of a sudden I've got a million to play with. So let's say, for example, I wanted to go, I don't know, let's say I want to go Dylan Brown. I've only got 270k left in the bank, which is obviously quite tight. There's not a lot of players that I could get there, like maybe Tanner Boyd, for example. But maybe in that instance, I say, okay, I'm stacking the fullback halves and the 5'8". Maybe I just take some money out of, I don't know, say second row forward. So maybe instead of Fafita, let me just put in Tanner Boyd, for example. So I've got 576k to play with. So who can I get? Maybe Adam Elliott. Moving over to the Knights. Had a pretty good SuperCoach season in 2022. So let me see how that team looks. Bit cheaper in the front row forward, cheaper in the second row forward, cheaper in the hooker. But we're stacking the halves, the 5'8", and the fullback. Looks alright. I've got Dylan Brown in my team now, so I quite like that too. So yeah, definitely a lot of ways that you can play around with your team. Like for me, I'm definitely going to be stacking the fullback. Like that's non-negotiable. Halfback, I'm okay to not go with Hines and Cleary, but I feel like I'm likely to start with them. So really, I think it comes down to then, do I want to stack my 5'8", or add that extra gun second row forward? Bit of a tough discussion. I think you're probably more likely wanting to actually stack your 5'8", but there could always be a cheapies that come out as well in those positions. Misty says, if you were to, and thanks guys for all these questions, I'm struggling to actually keep up. I think in terms of time, we'll probably go for about another 20-25 minutes, so we'll get to around hour mark. If you were to get an expensive centre wing, which one would you get, considering Joey Manu, Brian To'o, Val Holmes? Look, I'd probably still go with To'o because I think the price is just really, really good. So I think you're still getting good value, but you're paying unders for a guy who has proven to be a Supercoach gun. And Taylor May, I think, is suspended for, is it the first 3 or 2 weeks of the season? So I believe that's the case. I know it's at least 2 rounds. And so what you're going to probably have is then To'o playing on the left-hand side for the first 2 weeks. And who have the Panthers got in the first 2 weeks? Broncos and Rabbitohs. Look, Panthers are Panthers. They can easily score like 30 points in each of those games. And To'o getting a double in each of those games doesn't sound that surprising, right? So playing on the left is good. And so I do like To'o just for the price saving. The buy in round 3 is a bit of an issue. But if you can plan around that, then maybe To'o is the one you go for. Otherwise, if you're looking for a more safer set and forget longer term pick, I'd probably say Holmes just because of his draw. He doesn't have a bye in any of the first 8 weeks of the season. Roosters have one in round 2, I think it is, or round 3? Round 4, sorry, round 4. I can't even see my own screen. So, Manu's got a bye in round 4. To'o's got one in round 3. Val Holmes doesn't have one until, round 15. So he's a real nice long-term set and forget pick. So I think it kind of depends how you're looking at, having that expensive center wing. Is Mitch Kenny a trap? Will he get the minutes? Yeah, I was looking at Mitch Kenny's numbers, and they're not that impressive because he had some examples of games where he was playing the number 9 spot and playing big minutes, and he's still scoring like mid-30s, 40s. So I just don't know. For me, I'd rather just kind of wait and watch. Or I'd rather just take Tanner Boyd if he gets the starting halfback spot and goal kicking. To me, Tanner Boyd feels safer in that sense. So I wouldn't go out of my way and saying Mitch Kenny's a trap, but definitely someone I think I'm just happy to wait and watch. Like, I think he'll get minutes. It's just that based on examples of him playing big minutes before, it doesn't necessarily mean that he actually gets much more like base stats. Jane says Jack Howarth. Yeah, so Howarth is obviously a consideration as well for your second row forward. He's actually a dual, so you can actually put Howarth in your center wing as well. I think, again, comes down to TLT. Is he going to get a center spot? If he does, good chance we start with him, I think. Why is everyone calling Cheese a must-have? Aren't you worried with Turpin lurking? Look, I think Brandon Smith, even with Jake Turpin, Brandon Smith, I still think is going to play the majority of minutes, like play something like maybe 60 minutes a game, maybe 55 to 60, and Turpin might play the remainder 20 to 25. I'm just going to have a quick look at Brandon Smith's average minutes in 2021 when he had his crazy year. His average minutes was 60 in 2021. Now, granted, he was playing most of his games at hooker, actually. So, yeah, in 2021, he only missed a few games and was averaging 60 minutes, and he averaged 68. Lots of tries in there, but, the base stats were about 38. Base power was pretty solid as well. So I think even on the assumption he plays like 55, 60 minutes, I still think he's going to offer value. So I think that's why so many people are on him. I feel like there's low risk, I feel, starting with him. Stagg admitted he carried an injury for most of 2022, might explain his performances. I think I saw those quotes as well. Yeah, a bit surprising because there are times, the times just before I sold him, or just after I sold him, sorry, he went for those back-to-back tons. And he looked awesome, right? So yeah, maybe it could be a breakout year for Kotoni Staggs again, but just not sure if I'm willing to go back there and have my heart crushed again. Bloody Kotoni. We'll see. You never say never. Jessica says, I'm back. Welcome, Jessica. Welcome back. Tyler says, thoughts on Murray Talaugi. Talaugi? Is that how you pronounce it? Murray Talaugi. Correct me if I incorrectly pronounced that. So, yeah, bit of a kind of a cut price option, I guess, to get into the Cowboys backline. So he had a solid 2022. I think he averaged about 55, was it? Just having a look here. season stats 2022. Yeah, so it was an average of 55. He had that, I think it was this run here, which is when a lot of people went for him. You know, when he went, 63, 99, 98, 60, 62. So he did have a few big scores in there. He is very try dependent. That's probably the only downside. So if I go to fantasy stats, for example, which obviously makes sense. He's a winger, right? He needs to score the tries. But like I'm looking at some of these scores, like he scored, granted, some tougher games, but he scored a try with a line break and was still only sometimes getting like 50 points. Doesn't quite have the base stats. So I think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess their draw is so good. You could very comfortably say in their first 8 weeks, he'll score like 8 tries, 10 tries. So he could average around 60. So yeah, could be a budget option. The stats I don't love the stats, but maybe I'm too stats focused. Maybe I just need to realize that the draw is that good. Maybe just start with Tulagi. Maybe I think Valheim's is a safer option, but what's he priced at, Tulagi's? 578k. So it's not bad actually. You know what? There's a decent chance actually. If I'm looking for someone around that price range, I'd probably go with him, because actually just knowing that draw is that good, he could easily average a try a game and get you about 60 to 65, which is obviously good. He's obviously value at that point. If he averages 65, 10 points of value, you'll take that, good points and some cash generation as well. English says, great work, Command. Going to be a great season. Thank you so much. Yeah, hopefully 2023 is awesome. Do you think it's worth having Brimson as a reserve 6 for the first couple of weekends before switching to Schuster? I don't mind Brimson as a pick because he has got dual, I think, fullback 5'8 status. But in terms of the ploy of switching to Schuster, I don't love that, because I feel like if you know you're going to want to start with Schuster, just save yourself the trade and have him from the beginning instead of booking in those trades, because especially if you're looking into bringing him in round 3. Round 3 is the critical week where players' prices will start to change. So in that week, you want to try, I guess, to make sure you have as limited booked-in transfers. I've got my own unlimited group league, so I'll actually, when I get back to my normal setup, I'll show you guys the league code so that you guys can join. But there is a league that you guys can join. I'll put a link for that in the chat. So bear with me for a second. Group settings, invite friends. You're all my friends. I'm going to invite all my friends. Okay, sorry, I can see James, you said no sound. It's actually just started thunderstorming outside. That potentially could be the reason. Audio busted for a good minute. Oh, sorry about that. Let me know if you guys can still hear me okay. James says it's back. Okay, yeah, just let me know in the chat if that plays up anymore. I have had a couple of issues in the last week where I was recording a video and the audio did drop out for a second, or like for kind of 30 seconds to a minute. So I'll try to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But yeah, obviously let me know. If it keeps persisting, I might just wrap up the stream soon anyway. But it's all good now. Yep, cool. Thanks guys. Thanks for confirming. Yeah, just had a couple of mic issues. Growing pains of getting back into the season, isn't it? Cash leagues. I've got my own group league, which I've just put a link in the chat. And potentially I might look to do some prizes this year, because I realized I didn't do anything last year. So I'm having to think about a prize that I could add for maybe like the top, for like say first, second, and third in the overall league. I'd probably have some conditions where you could only join after say like round 2 or something. But yeah. Okay, let's get back into a few more questions, guys, for the next 10 or 15 minutes. Brenton says, I'm banking on Hines falling back down to earth after a stellar season. Yeah, look, obviously his 2022 was awesome, and it'd be very difficult for him to get back to those levels. But just knowing how good he was, and I think he's going to be very popular come round one, I'm kind of just going to take the safe approach and maybe just start with him, and with the knowledge that, you know, he's that expensive that if he flops, we can sell him to anyone. But look, I think he is a reasonable antipod type of player because he is the most expensive player, I think, in the game, unless Pappy's more expensive. Can we discuss Isaac Thompson? He seems to be a template player that I know nothing about. Rabbits have a tough draw, but is this guy a weapon? To be honest, I don't know actually much about Isaac Thompson, apart from him probably is going to start the right wing for the first 2 weeks, so he could be a good cheapie. Although James is saying, I'm a South supporter. He looked very good in the first few games he played, but small sample size. Lower grades, scores a ton. So he sounds like a pretty good lower grade player, but yeah, if he gets a starting spot for the first 2 weeks, it's good to potentially get a cheapie. When does SC normally assess adding dual positions? So I believe it's round 6, 12, and 18, Jerry. I'll have to double check that in the rules. I was trying to find it earlier, but I couldn't. But I believe it's round 16, 6, 12, and 18. Plug my own league. Yes, I did plug my league. So I've just put a link in the chat. I'll actually I think I can pin it. Yeah, I'll pin the message. So it should be at the top now. So anyone who's watching the stream on replay, hopefully you guys can see that. But yeah, there's an unlimited group league. Feel free to join, and ideally this season we'll try to add some prizes for, say, the first, the first, second, and third person. Is Hayes Perham a must-have? Definitely not a must-have. He's a bit of an unknown quantity. He hasn't played that many first grade games. It's just that Soralo's come out and said that he's got first crack at the fullback spot, and we like fullbacks in SuperCoach, so that's why I think he's in my team and probably quite a few others' teams. He'll be joining, I think, over the next few weeks. Happened again. With the Cowboys draw, I've gone Drinkwater. Yeah, really think Drinkwater is a good smoky for your fullback spot. I think what is he? 746k, so he's a good price cut on Latrell. That's a good $140,000, which you could immediately add to, say, like, I don't know, your second row forward. I can go from Adam Elliott maybe to to Dave Fafita, for example. So yeah, I think Drinkwater is a good smoky. Haven't really considered him a bunch, but yeah, good chance with the draw. If I don't end up going with Murray Talaugi or Val Holmes, that maybe I start with Drinkwater. Only thing on Drinkwater, I think, is that he had basically a career year. I just wonder if he can replicate the same. So it really comes down to how we think the Cowboys are going to go. But I think when you've got that good of a draw, it's a low risk play, I think. Ben says, I don't have the balls to not start with Hines. I'm basically in the same boat, so I feel ya. Mooney or Pele? I don't know I believe Trey Mooney is who you're referring to. I don't know if we actually know if he's going to get a crack I think he's in the Raiders, is it? Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to get a crack in the Raiders 17 either. So, while I'd love to help you out with that question, Jaden, it's really unknown at this stage. So I think that's one of those things where we can wait till TLT, I think. Turbo has a bye round 2, so we can wait. I think if he's a doubt for round 1, I'm probably not going to start with him. If he's available round 1, I'll probably just get him and avoid having to use the trade later in the future. So I'll probably just start with Turbo if he's fit for round 1. But yeah, you could definitely wait, see how he goes. If he misses round 1, his price won't actually change until round 4. And at that point, he's got well, actually no, because he has to play 3 games. So it actually wouldn't change until round 5. So I do think I think you can avoid starting with him if there's some doubts, because he's going into Parramatta and Rabbitohs, which are not easy games. And then he's got Knights, but then again, you're going straight to Panthers and Melbourne. So yeah, there's a good chance that you could just not start with him. Sorry guys, I can see that some people are saying there's some audio issues. I don't want to persist for too long if there's still going to be issues. So I'll I'll just let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me. If it's still not working, I might just end the stream there. We've already covered quite a bit. I just don't want to keep going with these audio issues. Sorry, I'll make sure that we try to fix that for next time. You're good. Okay. Tom saying, are there any bottom dollars players that are guaranteed to start / bench spots? Khan Pereira from the Titans probably looks like a shoe-in for the Titans wing spot that Marzu's vacated. So Khan Pereira is probably one. Eels may have one, either Hayes Dunster, maybe Simonson. Oh no, Simonson is still a bit of a doubt. So it could be Hayes Dunster, could be Sean Russell, could be a cheapie for Parramatta. Other bottom dollar, only ones that come to mind, maybe Howarth. Actually, Sean Bloor. Word is that Sean Bloor is going to be on the edge for the West Tigers. He's not quite bottom dollar, but he's 234k. So apparently John Bateman is going to play lock, and Sean Bloor is going to play one of the edge spots, with the other one being iPad. So apparently Sean Bloor is going to play the edge spots. That should be good for cheapie prospects as well. Not too many other like pure bottom dollar, but there's a few close to bottom dollar guys that we can think of. All right. Not too many more other questions coming in the chat. So I think just because of these audio issues, I know a few of you guys have said it sounds all good. I appreciate that. Probably just going to end the stream there, I think, though. I don't want to keep persisting if there's some more audio issues. But really appreciate everyone who's tuned in for this stream. Obviously, we've had a bit of a chat about the updated rules and some initial questions about players, which is awesome to see. And yeah, really happy just to see you all back in the live stream and, posting your questions and stuff. I feel like I'm getting the content creating juices are flowing again. So in terms of what's upcoming for content, so I'm hoping to release the front row forward video on Thursday, potentially a second row forward video over the weekend. Thereafter, kind of depends just on my schedule with work and other commitments. But yes. Next little month and a bit. So thanks everyone for joining me.